Thank you, Matt. Libraries are so important to our community, and it's really nice that you're able to have a partner, such a civically minded partnership with the library to help you. And I hope you'll all take Matt up on his suggestions to do your research, because you know this has been a redistricting year, and you may not be in the same district that you were in the last time you went and voted. So to avoid any surprises as to who's on your ballot, it would be good to use the services here to find out exactly who that's going to be on your ballot, and then you can research why you're going to vote for them. So tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about midterm elections and why they're so important. So to basically understand it, yes?
Before you start, would the library have some scratch papers?
Madam President, why are they important?
When your representatives are elected every 2 years, you miss a full cycle of electing a representative if you don't do a midterm. So I was so
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Well, to totally understand, are we ready, Matt? Are you recording? Okay. To totally understand the midterm elections, we really have to go back to the founding fathers, okay? And we have to talk about what decisions they were making back in the day when they declared our independence. And we have to look a little bit at our Constitution. Because, you know, they were faced with the huge challenge of how to create a new country, how to create a new government, since they were dissatisfied with the English monarchy. And Thomas Jefferson wrote in the Declaration of Independence, Governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. But while they had that philosophy, they had to decide how that would work. So at the Constitutional Convention, they threw out many ideas, from ancient Greece to ancient Rome to what the new state legislators were looking like in the American colonies. But the major thing that they decided was that the details of voting would be left to the states. They felt that it was important that the states have the right to determine their elections. But they did establish something in the Constitution. Article 1, Section 4 states, the time, places, and manner of holding elections for senators and representatives shall be prescribed by each state by the legislature thereof. But the Congress may at any time by law make or alter such regulations. So they left themselves an out, that if need be, they could put in some controls to make sure all our elections were free and accessible to all. The new innovations that they included in the Constitution, though, were fixed terms for an office of president, representatives, and senators. You know, their objection was to the monarchy. So they wanted to make sure that there were defined terms for both all our elected officials. And they also determined that regular elections would be held. So as you know, presidential elections are held every 4 years. For the Senate, the founding fathers decided that a 6-year term would be the best for that deliberative body. They were supposed to be the body that were the thinkers and more educated and could actually make decisions far removed for the rabble of the average day citizen. For representatives, they debated 1-year terms and 3-year terms. For 1-year terms, the argument against that was the time to travel to the Capitol during those days. You know, it wasn't a quick plane ride. It was horseback or carriage, and it would take days. So 1 year, they decided, wasn't enough for them to get to know how government works. The argument against the 3-year term was that they were afraid that if they were in office too long, that they would be corrupted by the intricacies of government. And because they were away from the people who elected them, that they would lose touch with their constituency. So the compromise was 2 years. James Madison wrote in Federalist 52 that it was essential to liberty that the government in general should have a common interest with the people. So it is particularly essential that frequent elections therefore were key to maintaining the faith and sympathy they were supposed to have with their constituents. The House was to be the house of the people. So we have, every 2 years, we elect the representatives and 1/3 of the Senate, and every 4 years, we elect our president. So the elections the elections held in the middle of the president's 4-year term are called the midterms, because it's actually halfway in between the president's term. So every midterm election, all 435 seats in the House of Representatives of the US Congress are reelected, and 1/3 of the 100-member Senate are reelected. The presidential elections are always big news, but the midterms are also important because they can have a huge impact on our society and the policies and laws that are passed. You know, most people use the midterm election as a referendum on the president's progress. How is the president doing? Is he taking the country in the right direction? If not, they'll vote for a person of the opposite party. My mother was always voted, no matter whether she liked the president or not, she always voted for the opposite party at the midterm because she felt that she was giving a check and a balance on him so that he would have to continue to talk to everyone else to get things done. Of course, we know today maybe that philosophy isn't quite the way it works anymore, but that was always her basic premise on who she voted for in the midterm elections. We do know, though, that midterms have historically been important. They're important because the House, the party that controls the House or the Senate, controls the agenda for the next 2 years. The majority party is the one that determines the House committees. They determine what bills are called to be passed. The majority party decides what hearings to hold. And on the most basic level, the midterm lets people have a voice in what issues should be discussed and how those issues should be discussed. So it's important to vote to send that message to your legislators that you agree with what they will go to Washington to represent. And we have to hold them to that too, right? Historically, there's been several times midterm elections have turned the focus of our country on its head. For instance, in 1858, if I can take you back to then, the country was divided over slavery. James Buchanan was elected president in 1856, and he faced a country that was torn apart and was becoming increasingly divided. In 1856, Senator Charles Sumner made a speech on the Senate floor and was brutally beaten almost to death by a member of the House of Representatives because he disagreed with Charles Sumner's speech against slavery. In 1856, John Brown and his followers attacked a pro-slavery encampment in Kansas. In 1857, the Supreme Court decision, the Dred Scott decision, declared blacks were never going to be citizens. And so the country was divided over this slavery issue. So in 1858, when the midterm elections came around for President Buchanan's election, Illinois became famous. It had 2 people running for Senate, Stephen Douglas and a newcomer to the politics, Abraham Lincoln. They held debates throughout the state about slavery, pro-slavery, anti-slavery, and it ended up that Abraham Lincoln was one of the founding members of the new Republican Party. Stephen Douglas represented the Democrats. And so what happened was through their speeches, they became known nationally. Senator Douglas was reelected as senator, but the Democratic senator from Illinois, but the new Republican Party gained control in the House, and they were known as the abolitionists. And they set the stage for a wave of Republican elections in the next presidential election of 1860, where we know this young man who wasn't very well known at the time became president, Abraham Lincoln. But all those events led to the fact that the country was going to be severely divided over a civil war in the issue of slavery. But the midterm elections and the election of House Republicans increased that debate, and we know that it wouldn't have happened if that midterm election hadn't helped influence the 1860 election. In 1958, President Eisenhower was finishing his 6 years in office, and he was facing increased criticism for a recession, the fact that the Soviets were advanced farther than we were in missile and space technology, and he had a scandal involving his chief of staff. In that midterm election, Democrats gained 13 seats in that midterm based on the unrest of the Republican presidential term of President Eisenhower. And in fact, it was the largest transfer of power in Senate history. 64 Democrats were elected to 34 Republicans. And why that became so important is because for the first time, the Western and Northern Democrats outnumbered the Southern Democrats. And what that led to was the passage of the most monumental civil rights legislation in history that took place in the 60s. All that happened because people took the time to go out and vote in the midterm elections. The turnout in midterm election is notoriously lower than general elections when the president is. I couldn't find statistics for Schaumburg because you're lumped in with the rest of Cook County, but on a majority on the state, usually the turnout for presidential elections is 70%, while the turnout for midterm election is only 50%. So those people that are going to Congress in Washington are running and making decisions based on a little over half the voting age population. The party of the president, on average, usually loses 26 seats in the House and 4 seats in the Senate. And usually those losses are even greater in a president's second term. Depending on your policy beliefs or political persuasion, your political affiliation, your vote can have a drastic effect on what's going to be brought before Congress in the next 2 years. It's important for everyone to vote. Only seven times since World War II have presidents actually gained legislators of their party in the House or in the Senate. And in fact, only 2 have gained seats both in the House and the Senate. So in 1934, President Roosevelt gained seats, and you can imagine why. He was instituting policies to bring our country out of the Depression. And in 2002, George W. Bush gained both seats in the House and in the Senate. The presidents who lost seats in their midterm were Woodrow Wilson, FDR in his second term, John F. Kennedy, Richard Nixon, Bill Clinton, and Donald Trump. In his midterm election of his presidency, he was able to gain seats in either the House or the Senate. But I guess while I can tell you nationally why the midterm elections are important, I think we really need to know that why they're important is for us in Illinois. Because in Illinois, we're going to be voting for our governor, our lieutenant governor, secretary of state, and all our statewide officials. And they have more of a direct impact on us than does the national government. They're the ones who determine our taxes, right? How much tax we pay on clothes, how much gasoline tax we pay. They're the ones that are going to control climate issues in Illinois. They're the ones that are going to deal with education issues. So we should really vote in the midterm election because those are the people that are important to us. Why we vote, along with 33 other states, on the midterm elections for state officials was because in 1970, the Illinois Constitution was rewritten. And at that time, the delegates decided that they wanted to join states like Michigan, New York, and Wisconsin, California, that we should take our state politics out of the limelight of the national politics. Why should the Illinois politicians who are determining our future have to fight for news coverage with those candidates that are running for president? So since 1972 or 74, not quite remembering which one, our elections switched from being, for state office, switched from being held on the national election years to presidential election years to the midterm election cycle. So on November 8th, every House and Senate seat in Illinois is up for re-election. This is due to redistricting. This House starts a new session in January, the second Wednesday of the month. So it's important for all of us to know exactly what districts we now are in so that when you go to vote, You're not surprised and go, wait a minute, I've always voted for John Smith. Why isn't he on my ballot? You must have given me the wrong ballot. No, they didn't give you the wrong ballot. They just changed the boundaries, and your house may not be in the same district as your neighbor's house. So it's important that you go to your election commission website, put in your address, and have Matt help you find out exactly what district that you're in, okay? But not only are elected officials going to be on the ballot, and this year we have a distinct choice between candidates. The choice is clear. You need to know what those candidates stand for, and your vote says whether you support them or not, and the policies that they're endorsing. But not only are we voting for candidates at this midterm election, we're also voting on a constitutional amendment for the Illinois Constitution. And I don't know how many of you know, but there's actually a right to work constitutional amendment, right to collective bargaining constitutional amendment on the November 8th ballot. In order for it to pass, it has to have 60% support of those voting for the issue, or 50% of the people who voted. It's one of two ways that it can pass. So what I'm suggesting to you is everybody needs to vote on November 8th. It's sad that only 50% of the people will go out and vote. It's easy to find information. You can go to the League of Women Voters website, which is Illinois Voter Guide, or the National League's website, Vote 411. They have all the information about the candidates. They've asked the candidates to submit answers to specific questions, and you can read their answers and determine their positions. League of Women Voters actually drive themselves crazy trying to get candidates to come to candidate forums so that you can ask questions of the candidates themselves and you can get answers about the issues that are important to you. We know that people who actively describe or identify with the Republican Party will vote. We know that people who actively ascribe to the Democratic Party are going to go vote. What we all have to do, and our duty from here now, is to actually reach out to the stay-at-home party. Those people who believe that they're just going to stay at home and sit it out, that it doesn't matter. Yes, it does matter, okay? And Election Day in Illinois is a state holiday. Voting could not be easier in Illinois. We are one of the luckiest states in the fact that we have vote by mail, early voting, and then voting on Election Day at your local precincts. We couldn't make it easier for people to go to vote. I'm not sure I quite understand why they don't, but all we can do is be part of the posse that goes out and educates people on the issues. That just because the president isn't on the ballot doesn't mean that we shouldn't go out and vote, because we need to vote for our governor, lieutenant governor, and all those legislators in the Illinois General Assembly who are going to decide the future of our own state. So, any questions? Yeah.
I just got an email today asking if I wanted a mail-in ballot. I heard they were supposed to mail, Cook County was supposed to mail this by August 31st, but I only know one person who got it in the mail, but I got it on the email. If I want the mail-in ballot, I should reply to that. So that was good. I thought that was good.
Well, and I know I checked out some of the Cook County website before I came tonight, and so the question is, should you reply to that email? Yes, but you can also go on the Cook County Elections website and you can fill out an application for a vote by mail. And you can apply for a vote by mail for this election only. You can apply for a vote by mail for every election. If you do that, you do have to declare a political party because they want to send you the right primary ballot. But yeah, it's, yeah, in DuPage County, we all got a mailer yesterday in the mail to send in if we wanted to vote by mail.
Something in the mail?
But no, I'm in DuPage County though. Okay, yeah. I'm kind of in foreign territory here.
I think they're a little behind.
Well, it's a little bigger than DuPage County. Yeah.
I think we're all supposed to get applications in the mail also.
I think if by law you're supposed to.
Not yet, I haven't. Well, I only know one person who got one, and send in.
I think they have to send it by mail.
I know.
That's some of the. I did get the second half of my question first.
Sure.
I'll be quiet. Those Illinois voter guides that you were saying, are they ready?
They should be posted next week. In advance of early voting, they're going to get them out. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I think I got one, like, a mailer a couple weeks ago, but I don't remember getting an email. And normally, I think just because it's email, normally I just go directly to the site versus replying, because with email, you don't necessarily know who it came from.
Yeah, and I imagine they get thousands of emails. And so I would just go to the site and do the application right there. Yeah.
Look at the email they sent today, so yes, I got it today, I got it today too. They will be starting to send out ballots in early October, so they haven't gone out.
The ballots haven't gone out yet.
That's right.
Right.
This is just to request the ballot.
Just to request a ballot.
To request the ballot.
I think the law stated that they're supposed to be mailed. So like I said, DuPage just got theirs out in the mail this week. So maybe yours will be coming in a few days. If not, call them up. Say, where's my mailer? Yes.
Well, from the Cook, said it was from Cook County.
Just go to the website. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could you repeat the websites you said to?
Oh, one is Illinois Voter Guide. And that's sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Illinois. And the other website is vote411.org.
And when you get to your research tables at the stations, a lot of those are listed on.
We have some handouts with those.
Great, because what you want to do is make a voting plan, right? And what you want to do is also send that voting plan to your friends, neighbors. We know what works to get people out to vote is when you say you're voting, they will go to vote. If you have young children or if you have grandchildren, take them to go vote with you. People vote when it becomes a habit. So if we get young children going to vote with you and seeing how you do it and why you're doing it, then they will all of a sudden become involved. I take my two neighbors, I don't have grandchildren, I just have granddogs and they won't let them in. So I borrow the neighborhood children and we go off to vote and show them, you know, so that I'm sure their parents are politically opposite for me, so I want them to know both sides, you know. Kathy.
As you were talking about the referendum, the thought occurred to me.
Mm-hmm.
It never occurred to me with this general election stuff, but it really rang when you indicated that the vote, the referendum can pass if half of the voters,
Who go to the polls.
half of the voters go to the polls. But then it can also pass if more than half of the people that actually voted with respect to the referendum.
60%.
60%. So in an election where 50% of the people show up, that's 49% of the people show up, right? In theory, less than 25% of the population is voting on.
An important issue.
Is voting not only on an important issue, but for our elected officials,
Yeah.
which I don't know why that was a startling revelation to me. It didn't occur to me until you kind of put it in numbers for the referendum that so few people are actually affecting the outcome of elections.
Yes.
That's why they've been so close, probably, but that's really puzzling.
It is. When you think that, I think it's the Scandinavian countries, they're in the 90% voter turnout. And we who are the, you know, pardon the Greeks and pardon the Romans, you know, I mean, we're the lamp of democracy, right? But our people don't care enough to go out and vote, you know, and what are the reasons? It's too hard to vote. No, it's not in Illinois. I'm sorry. We're probably the best state to vote in, other than Colorado that votes by mail. You know, it's all vote by mail. They don't know the issues. Well, if you can watch TikTok videos, you can take the time to watch some videos about the candidates, right? And it's, they don't think it makes a difference. Well, listen to Kathy, you know, if that few voters,
anyway, most of the time.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a different story.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and the other
Oh.
thing I hear is, I'm afraid I might make the wrong decision.
How can you make a wrong
I
decision?
vote for the wrong guy, vote for someone that's not, I mean, you can't be any dumber than the rest of the people out there. Get out there and make a decision and vote.
Right. You know, we make decisions all the time. Look at the issues, decide who you agree with, and you're not going to agree with every single issue, but the one you agree with the most. You know, I hate when I hear I voted for the least of the two terrible candidates. No, one of those candidates agreed with you on something, you know. And the trouble is that we don't hold the candidates to it, right? I mean, we need to be aware of what's going on. We need to look at their voting record. We need to talk to them and make sure that they know and they hear our voice, that we're going to hold them accountable if they don't do what they said they're going to do.
In our last municipal election for 2021,
Oh.
Schaumburg Township's turnout was 12%.
With how much?
12%.
I know.
And that was
I know.
up from 10 4 years before
I
and
know.
8%.
Then that's the local election.
Oh, in 2023, it's for your village officials, for your library boards, your school boards, those elections average 12% throughout the state. And do you know that at this point in time, what's crazy is that if you want to be on the ballot in April for school board, city council, library board, park board, they have to be getting their petitions now. And they have to be turned in December. So how do we, as active citizens, because you're here tonight, how do we encourage our friends and family to stop thinking about November and start thinking about April, right? How do we get them to collect the signatures needed to get on the ballot so that we can have, I don't know about here, but in my town, we don't even have opposition, you know? I mean, there's just a single candidate running, and sometimes for library board, nobody runs. And so they end up having to appoint. So our system requires us to be involved to make it function correctly, right? Yeah.
I want to ask, we're going to have a debate with Raja and Dargis?
Are you going to have well, the league has forums, not so much debates, because debates, they end up yelling at each other. Yeah, forums, they answer questions. So Kathy's getting the dates right now.
Good,
It's
thank
on
you.
October 20th
Okay,
at 6 p.m.
okay.
It will be live at
At Harper College? Okay,
more to follow. But,
okay, October 20th, okay. And what about Whitney and Mussman? Is there a debate?
Probably Arlington
Forum?
Heights. Arlington Heights may be doing that one. It's
Well, they're here in Schaumburg. They're here.
Um,
They're
I think
here.
what she means is the Arlington Heights League. So the league is a national, state, and local, and we have chapters.
Oh, okay. And it doesn't, you think they'll do something?
I don't know.
I think Roselle Bloomingdale League is actually planning to do that one.
Oh, they are.
I think so. I think I'm moderating that
I'm
forum.
happy. because I wanna
Yeah,
see it.
so this is my suggestion to you. On the Illinois League of Women Voters website, it's lwvil.org, they're going to be listing all the candidate forums that all the local leagues are holding, so that there's a master calendar, so people can go there to see when different candidate forums are going to be held by the different leagues.
That link will also be on the handouts that we have at the research tables, so if you don't remember the exact URL, the League of Women Voters Candidate Forum is one of those things we have listed there as a resource. So be sure to check back there again to see when those are posted and who's being posted where.
And the leagues are really actively trying to work together so that all the forums are recorded. And so every league, for instance, if your league, this league doesn't hold the forum for Representative Mussman, they can link to the video of the recording. So check your local league website. The local league is a fountain of wealth of information. So we'd love to have you not only look at the website, but join the league. Is that what you paid me to say, Kathy? Yeah, okay.
We're not allowed.
I think
Pardon me?
We're not allowed to solicit membership.
Oh, I can, no, I'm not a member of your league.
I heard there's going to be a debate October 6th between Pritzker and,
Bailey?
yeah, And, but I don't know, I didn't hear anything else, but I heard it was October.
I heard that there were going to be 2 debates actually for the governor's race, and I'm not quite sure what those dates are, but WGN, I believe, is having one, and I forget the other station that's having one, but
We'll be busy.
yes,
We'll be very busy.
you better watch that movie early.
Never forget the movie.
I don't know which league, which local chapter it is.
I'm from the Wheaton League.
I know, but you're from Wheaton, but
That's
that's
where you
on
live.
Arlington Heights, is one of those. So is it, I live in Hoffman Estates, is there a Hoffman Estates league, or am I part of Schaumburg's league?
You would be part of the Palatine area league, which is with Schaumburg.
Yeah.
Area League has Barrington, Palatine, Hoffman, Inverness, Schaumburg, Laimins.
Yeah, and Wheaton covers Warrenville, West Chicago, Winfield, Wheaton, and Carroll Stream. So we cover 5 communities. Yeah, the surrounding communities get incorporated, even though the official name is Wheaton. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions? If not, I'll send you on your way to go find your candidates with Matt, copy down those websites, and make your plan to vote. And take some extra sheets if they let you to send out to your neighbors and friends. Okay. Okay.